Welcome to Classic Motorsport Podcast. I'm Gav Thomas, and today we're looking at a guy that was the third four-time winner of the Indy 500, and a guy that was well respected and still is around the paddock. And that guy is Rick Mears. Mears was born in Wichita, Kansas in 1951, but raised in Bakersfield, California. Mears began his career in off-road racing in 1976. He was recommended by a representative of Bill Simpson's helmet company, and Simpson gave him a ride in the USAC Champ Car Ontario 500 in an old Eagle Offenhauser, finishing 8th. Simpson then sold the car to Arthur Guy on the condition Mears would continue driving it. In the middle of 1977, he switched to Theodore Racing. The results obviously were not spectacular at the beginning of 77, but when he switched to Theodore Racing, he began to impress. And that led to his speed attracted the attention of a certain Roger Penske, although Penske at the time had two top-line drivers, Tom Snever and Mario Andretti. Snever was doing a full season, but Andretti was on a partial schedule because he was also racing in Formula 1 with Team Lotus. And Penske wanted another young driver who focused exclusively on American racing. For 78, Mears was offered a part-time ride in 9 of the 18 championship races, filling in for Andretti when he was dominating in the Lotus 79. The arrangement also included a ride at the Indianapolis 500. In his rookie appearance at Indy, Mears qualified on the front row and the first rookie to qualify over 200 miles an hour. When the race began, Mears discovered his helmet was not strapped on tight enough and had to pit early to get it safely secure. Did not lead a lap and retired at 104 laps with a blown engine. He shared Rookie of the Year honours with Larry Weiss. 2 weeks later, at the Rex Mays 150, Mears won his first oval race and his first race in IndyCar, added another win later at Atlanta, and then his first road course win at Brands Hatch. The National Championship sanction changed from USAC to CART for 1979, and Mears went on to win not just the championship with 3 wins. One of those wins came at Indy. And then for 1980, Mears was then tasked to do both USAC and CART. In the USAC schedule, Mears did 5 races. Best result was 5th at Indianapolis and Milwaukee, 7th in the championship, whereas in the CART series, it was only 1 win at Mexico. But the problem was, the Chaparral had ground effect and Johnny Watford drove to the championship. Later that year, Mears was offered a Formula 1 test with Brabham by then team boss Bernie Ecclestone. Mears took interest in the test largely because of the ongoing split between CART and USAC and wanted other options in case CART fell apart. Mears tested with Brabham twice. The first one was at Paul Ricard in the Castellet in France. After adjusting the driving style to the Brabham BT49, Mears posted lap times within half a second of lead Brabham driver and future 3-time world champion Nelson Piquet at the first test. They tested once more at Riverside in California in the US, and Mears posted lap times faster than Piquet's. Piquet was so impressed with Mears' driving and enjoyed their time together so much that he endorsed bringing Mears on as a second driver for Brabham. Bernie Ecclestone sought an offer to Rick Wide, Mears did say that they came to terms on a contract, but it was a matter of time of making a decision. But to Bernie's disappointment, Rick made the decision. And the decision was to turn down the offer. Mears did say, after he declined the offer, that I got into racing as a hobby because I love it and it's what makes me happy. I decided I was going to do that, do what makes me happy, not what pays the most. I started weighing all the facts. The money in F1 was good, yes, but it was road courses only, and I like ovals. I could see kart getting strong, and I like the variety of kart with short ovals, long ovals, street circuits and permanent road courses. I felt you had to be more well-rounded driver to win the kart championship, and I liked the Penske team and the association we had there. To me, kart was more competitive and more challenging. I kept weighing everything, and I said, I don't care for some of the egos over there in Formula 1. I have more fun staying in kart. Formula 1 would have been fun, but it would be more fun to me to stay on in kart. By the time we did the test at Riverside, I could see kart was taken off, so I made the decision not to do Formula 1. I don't regret one bit. I made the right call for me. It was tough to pass up everything I had with Penske. You couldn't ask for a better team, and I had all the faith in the world in both Roger and the team. I knew Formula 1 was a different world, probably more cutthroat. There was also the hassle of the extra travel you have to think about living in Europe. I decided it was the best to stay with Penske and stay here in the United States in the kart series, and that was Rick Mears' own words when he spoke to Motorsport magazine a couple of years ago. The 1981 kart season saw another championship win for Mears, with 6 wins in 8 races. 2 wins at Atlanta, a win at Riverside, a win at Michigan, win in Mexico and at Watkins Glen, but was forced to skip the Milwaukee round after recovering from burns from a pit stop fire at Indianapolis. Mears went for his pit stop, but the fuel sprayed out and burnt Mears and some of the Team Penske crew. But he recovered enough to race at Atlanta and went on to win not just the race but later on the championship at the end of the year. 1982, Mears won 4 races and his 3rd IndyCar title. But he did lose the Indianapolis 500 by 0.16 of a second. With less than 20 laps to go, Mears made his final pit stop. Usually, you've put in the fuel of how many laps they do left. The Penske pit crew filled the entire tank of rather than give them the amount that he needed to finish. The delay left him more than 11 seconds behind Gordon Johncock. Mears made up the difference when Johncock suffered handling problems, but failed to secure the win. It was closest finish for 10 years until Aronson Jr. and Scott Goodyear went on first and second in the closest finish at Indy in '92. The photo finish was muffed out the controversial pace lap crash when Mears' teammate Kevin Cogan spun out for no apparent reason. Fellow drivers such as John Cock, Johnny Watford and retired driver Bobby Unser blamed Mears for causing the crash that brought the field at a slow pace. 1983 saw the Penske team acquire Pennzoil sponsorship with its yellow paint scheme. Al Unser Sr. won the title, but Mears only won 1 race that year, and that was at Michigan, with third places at Pocono, Milwaukee and Indy being the best result. For 1984, the team switched to the March chassis from the Indy 500 onwards, after the Penske chassis proved unsuccessful in the first two races of the year. Mears went on to win his second Indy 500 that May, but during practice at Saint-Air Super Speedway in Canada, Mears crashed on the front stretch and suffered severe leg injuries. The March chassis, like most open-wheel cars at the time, sat the driver forward in the nose with little protection for the legs and feet. As a result, Mears was slowed down by the injuries, and it affected him through the remainder of his driving career. For 1985, he did a partial schedule where he did Indianapolis, which he finished track first and retired, third at Milwaukee, but then he didn't reappear to Michigan, where he retired, then skipped Road America and then winning at Pocono before coming back at Michigan to finish second. 1986 saw Mears win the pole at the Indy 500, but finished third, and winless all season with 4 third places at Indy, Milwaukee, Road America and Miami being the best result, with a March 86C and a Penske PC15 being unreliable pretty much all season. That led Mears to be 8th in the championship. But for 1987, Mears bounced back. The 86C gave him a win at Pocono, but he only had 3 third places at Portland, Nazareth and Laguna Seca. The team used the PC16 in the early stages of the season, but it was just uncompetitive. But from 1988 onwards, Penske and Mears showed why he was that good. Wins at Indy and Milwaukee in 88 led to him being 4th in the title. But in 1989, he won 3 races at Phoenix, Milwaukee and Laguna Seca, was second at Nazareth and at Pocono. Mears lost the title to Emerson Fittipaldi in a privateer Penske, and had to make do with Fittipaldi as a teammate from 1990. Mears won the opening round at Phoenix, but his best result thereafter was second at Milwaukee and the Meadowlands and in Nazareth. But in 1991, Mears came back with wins at Indy and at Michigan, with third places at the Meadowlands and at Surfers Paradise. For 1992, Mears showing that he can still do the job, and at Surfers Paradise finished second, but he was still under the side effects of injuries, because during practice in 1991 for Indianapolis, Mears hit the wall for the first time in his career. But at the 92 Indy 500, he got himself injured and broke his wrist during practice, and then crashed out in the race as he could not avoid Jim Crawford's spinning car in turn 1. He was filled in by Paul Tracy for Detroit after Penske entered Tracy in a third car, not just for Indy but for Phoenix, I believe, as well. And then Mears did Portland, Milwaukee and New Hampshire. His best result was 4th, but then Tracy took over the car at Toronto, and then Mears raced again at Michigan and retired, with Tracy doing the bulk of the schedule thereafter. But what people did not know was that Mears decided to retire at the end of the season. He told his wife Chris, and he also told Roger Penske about the plans of retirement. It wasn't until the Penske team Christmas party Mears announced about his retirement, as he had just turned 41 at that stage. Even today, Mears is still involved with Team Penske as a driver, coach and consultant and a spotter, worked with guys such as Castroneves, Tracy, Unser Jr., and even today's guys like Power and McLaughlin. Mears is still an influential guy, not just in Penske, but in IndyCar in general. And it's a family affair with motor racing. Mears' brother, Roger, raced at Indy a couple of times. Mears' own nephew, Casey, raced in NASCAR. And Rick's own son, Clint, is an off-roader and did open wheel racing himself. Although being inducted to the International Hall of Fame, Motorsport Hall of Fame in 97, Indianapolis Motor Speedway Hall of Fame in 98, as well as the Motorsport Hall of Fame in America, and Team Penske's Hall of Fame in 2017, Mears has got a long, good career that he had. Did we see other drivers that had the reputation? We don't know. I'm Gareth Thomas, and this was Classic Motorsport Podcasts. Remember to like, share and subscribe for more great content. Goodbye.